Hey everybody, this is Tony over with Class Eagles. Hope you're having a great day. This week during our training sessions, I had a conversation with the players that I wanted to share. I thought it was pretty cool. Most players obviously nowadays they play video games. They love video games, and I don't blame them. They're pretty cool. I liked video games when I was a kid, and they're much better now than they were when I was young. But obviously, with soccer players, a game they love to play is FIFA. So I asked the players, what teams and players do you like using in FIFA? And of course, they went through their favorite teams, players, and started arguing with each other who was better and why they use them and things like that. So what was interesting is I asked them a question. I was like, why do you like using those players or playing with those teams? And they said that these are the best players or the best teams. They have the best stats. They have the best control, best shots, pass and receiving. It's more fun to play with the players in the games that are more complete. They can do everything they ask that they want them to do when they're playing. So I turned it back on them and said, well, so you're saying you wouldn't want to use a player in the game or play with a team in a game that, let's say a player couldn't, receive a ball, and every time the ball is played to him, it'd bounce off him and it'd be a turnover. Or if the player, every time you tried to pass with that player, it went to the other team, or they couldn't get any shots on goal, or the player couldn't run for very long without getting really tired. And they're like, no, that wouldn't be a lot of fun. And I try to get them to think about, then, if you see yourself as a player like that, why would you want to be a player that, wasn't able to do some of those things? If you're looking at your training and when you're on the field, these same, video game characters you play with, you love playing with them because they can do everything so well. Let's have, that same type of expectation for ourselves that when we step on the field, we don't want to not be able to do some of the things that we would want to be able to do on the field to be successful. So when they're playing these video games, they have so much fun because these little characters can do everything, and they use the best players because they can do the most and they're fun to play with. So I wanted them to think about like them to have that same expectation of themselves when they step on the field, and that if there's things that they can't do as well right now, not to just accept that, hey, I just can't do that, but they want to improve so they can be more of that complete player. So if they were in that video game and they had their stats that they'd be working constantly to try to move their stats and all their ability levels up as far as possible, so when they step on the field they can do everything they want. And that, if they were one of those characters, everybody would want to play with them, they'd want to use them. So it was a cool conversation. I think the kids got it that they are playing these games, these players, and they're obviously representing really good players around the world. And another interesting thing they brought up is that these players, also being some of the best already and have made it, are still constantly training and trying to get better. They don't show up to practice and like, oh, I'm a professional, I've made it, and that's it. I don't have to work anymore or improve anything. The best players in the world are still working as hard as they can to improve their level of play and close the gaps on some of the things that they might not be as good as they would want to be. So as youth players, as players who are aspiring maybe to play at that level, why aren't we putting in at least the same amount of effort or even more effort than them? Because again, that's how they got to that level. That's how they're able to do what they can do because they've never been satisfied. They continue to work hard and play. So, since kids are going to play video games anyway, I thought it was a interesting way and a great conversation to bring it back around to their own development and how they approach the game and training. And ideally I wanted them to see themselves as those characters on the screen. And if someone was like selecting which team or players they want to play with, they would want other people to want to play with them, and want to select them because they want them on their team because everything they can do. And if there's anything they can't do or they want to be able to do better, that they are working incredibly hard and, focusing on trying to improve in those areas and not just accepting that, well, maybe I'm not very good at this and I never will be. So it was a great conversation. It was pretty neat. They all started talking about, which player they think they're closest to, or which player they would want to be, or who would be the better game character. So it was pretty funny to hear them talk about it. But I think they understood that, just like those characters on the game that they pick and select based on their level, they would want to see themselves in the same way that people they would want to get their level and play and train to get their level to a point that everyone will want to play with them too. And maybe not being selected by somebody playing a video game, but obviously from players around them, coaches, stuff like that, that they're working to put themselves at a level that they're somebody that someone always wants to play with. So again, it's the age of video games. It's the way kids do it, and I think it's great that they have that access to it, and they get to play the game in a way and learn so much about it that maybe kids of my generation didn't have that kind of access. So I don't think it's always a bad thing that kids are playing video games, especially if they're playing FIFA and soccer related games, because I think it does help grow that passion for the game, but hopefully, also translates into a little bit of motivation for them to train and work harder when they step on the field and they're playing with their teams.